The Beef and Barnzy Show, brought to you by Bowlersmart.com, trusted by bowlers around the world since 2004. By Lightning Strikes Bowl, home of Bowlers Mart Pro Shop. By Platinum Ford, drive the difference. By Fire Lake Bowling Center, 24 state-of-the-art lanes. By True Grit Coatings, drive on our passion. By Roll to Grip, king of them all. By 900 Global, striking worldwide.
The hyped balls, I would say from my short time with them, I would say that they were a little stronger than I expected them to be. I think that they kind of fill a gap kind of above the, if we were looking at the whole of the Storm
Hi, Mom.
brands. Yeah. Hey, hello, Mrs. Barnes. I'd have them just above the Burners, a little stronger than the Burners, just a bit more ball overall. But definitely below, say, Idols and kind of in between High Roads and Burners, I would say.
Oh, for sure. For sure. Hi, Mr. Eddie.
But anyway, let's get back on track with the old products. So do you want to start with hyped pearl or hyped hybrid?
What do you got?
Okay, well, I've got a bit of a video on both, so I'm going to warn you guys in advance. I wasn't as I didn't have as many of my tools available to me this trip, so you might want to press the old mute button a little bit because we're not going to be able to talk while this is on, and the background is a little loud. But anyway, here's the hyped hybrid. There's a video up on YouTube already. I did one of those, whatever you want to call it, one game uncut. So here we go. Here's some highlights. So that was a little longer than I thought it was going to be. Yeah, I mean, for me, this ball is way stronger than I really expected it to be. It stands up really. It's got a pretty defined point at which it stands up. That can, on drier lanes, make it go a little more forward than you would expect, which to me, with the one I had, was a reaction that really, in Mel's, it knocked the pins around quite a bit. But I could see in other spots that might not be necessarily what you were 100% looking for, with it being quite, like I say, it's a lot stronger than I expected it to be. So I've actually got another one at home that I'm probably going to drill a little weaker because I did my kind of standard 4.5-inch pin on these balls with a, I think with a 3-inch pin buffer. That's kind of what I use for the lower end balls. And I think that layout was just a little bit strong for the hyped hybrid. But it definitely has a spot where it stands up pretty strong from what I've seen so far.
Yeah, I would agree completely. And what Scott says here is correct too. That the hype balls they're pretty strong in general, and that hyped hybrid in particular, I think, is pretty strong in the midlane. I see it being really good on cliffed, where you have some wet dry house shots, and then on the medium to shorter patterns from a more competitive sport type pattern standpoint, and then Simonson on basically whatever else he wants. when they're hooking a little bit, because for me, a touch smooth. There is a place it rolls pretty good, but I don't know that I would use it instead of, say, Synergy or some of those cleaner low RG balls that flare a little bit more. And so for me, I see my son probably be able to use it more often, kind of like Simonson, where it
Yeah,
controls
I think
the lane a little bit for him.
Yeah, I think that the thing that's good about it is because it stands up and it kind of goes a little more. It's a little. It's not as continuous as the Pearl is for me, and because it does that, I can see that in some places where the back ends are really flying, I could see this being really good because you can throw it to the spot and kind of get it to stop. And I also feel like higher rev rate guys are going to like it because it's not going to be quite as angular down, like, continually angular. It's going to have that kind of hook and then like lay in that spot. So I kind of like the fact that the reactions are like quite different.
Yeah, they're not on top of each other.
It's kind of pointless having two balls come out in that range that are just two different colors. We've seen that in the past. In the lower end balls, you have, there's like three balls and like two of them are basically the same. It's just whether you like that color or the other color. That's definitely not what these balls are like.
No.
How does the Hype Hybrid compare to the Electrify Solid? For me, it's quite a bit stronger and it's quite a bit more noticeable. Like the breakpoint shape, the Electrify Solid is much more rounded for me.
Yeah, it's just a stronger ball overall, I'd say. And on the control side, a little bit more on the control side. If you're speed dominant, this is a ball for drier conditions. If you're more rev dominant or softer speed, it's going to be a medium type ball.
We have one of the sponsors of the show, Mr. Stony Burke from Platinum Ford. Here, Chris got a couple of shots of him throwing both the Hype Hybrid and the Hype Pearl. He's a big Storm guy. His Arsenal's almost exclusively all Storm balls, or is exclusively all Storm balls, should I say? So he throws the Hybrid for a couple of shots and then the Pearl for a couple of shots, so you can at least get an idea of what the two balls do off each other at exactly the same time. So that at least gives you a bit of an idea of what other people see out of those two balls. Like for the way I look at it is I feel like that Hype Pearl the Hype Hybrid is at least a couple of feet sooner.
Yeah, I was going to say 3 feet, probably maybe even 4 for some people.
Yeah, and it's definitely not as continuous a reaction as the Hype Pearl. I think that the Hype Pearl fits more into the gap of what you would expect a weaker ball to do. And when I say weaker, I'm just talking about down from, say, like maybe a High Road Pearl in that kind of gap, rather than like Hustle, Burner Pearl type reaction.
Right. I would say it fits in between that gap. They roll a little heavier in the mid lane. The Pearl is a little bit sharper, a little cleaner, sharper, more angular look. The Hybrid's a little stronger, a touch more rounded look. These kind of balls are fitting in a little bit where, say, IQ Emerald, maybe in that range.
Yeah, the covers are a little cleaner than the Emerald, but kind of the same kind of idea. Not quite as violent off the spot as some of the balls that can be in that range. For me, I kind of see that the hyped pearl is going to get a lot of play on tour late on in the blocks, because I think that it's smooth enough that it's not going to just over bounce off the dry. But I feel like guys are going to be able to make it early enough to kind of blend it a little bit once they get messed up in the front part of the lane. So it'll be interesting. I've been wrong plenty of times before. I tipped the Rubicon to be the ball of 2021. It was for the two-handers. The one-handers didn't use it so much.
Hybrid speed dominant players here.
It really depends on which gap you want to fill.
True.
I mean, if you're just picking one or the other over a general purpose ball, probably the hybrid. But, you know, I could see for a higher speed, you know, a speed dominant player that the hype pearl could fit in to be the weakest ball you carry quite easily. Because, you know, a speed dominant player probably isn't going to need a hustle camo.
And the hype pearl and the high road max are completely opposite categories.
Yeah, the high road max has pretty much the strongest cover that Storm make on it. So that ball is super early, super cover dominant, really smooth ball.
Yeah. Hyped hybrid and hype pro react. Anything similar to the old Wreckham or Wrecker?
I think that the hyped pearl might be closer to the Wreckham. Probably for me, a little closer. I haven't really spoken to Simonson about it. Me and Simonson felt like we were the only two people who used the Wreckham. But that was definitely one of our favorites. Simo every now and again just randomly pulls one out of the bag that he's just drilled 5 minutes ago. It's like his Houdini trick. Let's just have a brief second to hear from our friends at True Grit before we move on to see some more shots with Barnes with these balls. Thanks again to the guys down in Tampa for the support of the show. Let's have a look at Chris throwing a few shots with hyped pearl and I think there's one with the hyped hybrid.
This one, pin in the middle finger.
I think that actually was a pretty good demonstration of how much stronger the hybrid was for you.
Yeah, it's the hybrid's drilled a touch stronger. It's just a tall 5-inch versus a low 5.5, or low-ish. But yeah, I find it to be 3 to 4 stronger in general.
Yeah, and it looked like it was the crucial 3 or 4. Like the hype pearl for you was that point where you couldn't really keep it in the oil because it wasn't really strong enough. You had a couple of really kind of not convincing light hits, and then you obviously moved a little closer to the dry and it over bounced a little bit. That might have been a situation where you could have been with the hybrid early and then transitioned into the pearl, I would guess.
Yeah, it's a little bit on what we were bowling on. It was a broken down house pattern, and it's kind of what I wanted to show because it's where I would use it is more in this range, but really not quite dry enough yet for as weak as I drilled the hype pearl. I see it come into play, but it's also a drilling I like to use when I want to play straighter, instead of urethane or when the lanes are hard. And so it's really to fit in the space for me. When Stoney threw his showed the thing that we're talking about, where it's actually quite a bit sharper in the back of the lane. But one of the things I really like about this Hype series is how well they do pick up in the mid lane for cores that aren't super big, and they're shiny and they're relatively clean. But I love the fact that I can throw them hard. I don't have to worry about them breaking loose so much. They're not as skid flippy as some of the lower. As you move down, we talked about hustles or we talked about burners. Those are really good, especially burners, really good dry lane balls. But on some oil, if you throw them hard, they can blow through it.
Yeah, Brian, hyped hybrid compared to hustle camo. For me, the hustle camo is way weaker than the hyped hybrid.
I think it's a little earlier and a little smoother is what I've seen so far.
Yeah. Just hyped hybrid's just more ball overall.
I think this might be a little bit closer, even though the surfaces are not similar.
Yeah, I mean, to me, it's definitely a different tool. If I was wanting to kind of trap it and keep it straighter, I'd definitely be using the PBR. The solid cover, a little more texture, definitely a little easier to control. If you were having trouble with the 10 pin, like really flat 10ing all the time because the ball was just like kind of burning up in the front, then I could see the hyped hybrid coming into play, like kind of off each other, like a kind of a 1-2. I don't really see them being a like comparable balls.
Yeah, I think they hook maybe close to the same amount overall, but where they hook, the hybrid's going to be the PBR is cover dominant and a little weaker core. And so it's going to be a little earlier when it sees friction, where the hyped hybrid is shinier cover and has more core. And so I think you're going to see more mid lane / down lane reaction.
Danny says, what layout did you go with on the hype pearl? I think Chris was saying it was a 5.5 by 4.5.
Yeah, in my middle finger. So, which took the diff down slightly too. So probably not completely fair as far as that, but what I still like about it is that it does still pick up. I can throw that ball really firm and not worry about it going 100 feet.
Dalton, one of my teammates on a Tuesday night, says, needed some stuff on the weaker end, mostly strong equipment, only weak ball in my bag is electrified pearl. Would the hype be a good fit as a step up from that? Yeah, they could be. I mean, I actually wouldn't hate a hustle camo for you. As an option. I think the solid cover might give you something that was a little more blended, or a hustle PBR. But in terms of that, a step up from the electrified pearl, I think the option would probably be the hyped hybrid. I just think because Dalton's two-handed. At the minute, I would think that the hyped hybrid might be a little difficult to control on some of the things because you wouldn't have that. It wouldn't blend the front part of the lane for you. So that's where I see that. So I've got a bit of a video on the hype pearl. This is, I would say that this is the one that I like the best of all three balls on the show today so far from what I've seen. I'm not saying it's better or worse. It's just this fits more of a gap that I had than the other two. And sometimes that's situational. Like, in 6 months' time, if these three balls come out, maybe I'd like the trend too. I'd have more of a gap for the trend too. But so far from what I've seen, this is the ball that definitely is going to go straight into my bag. So let's just talk about how much I got screwed on that Tomahawk Messenger coming over and missing. I mean, come on. Yeah, the thing I felt like got shown in that video was I like the fact that I can create different shapes with that ball with kind of my speed and or kind of a little bit of rotation changes. Sometimes the problem with weaker balls is you just have that deal where you kind of really only throw them one way. It kind of fits in that exact spot, and that can be good. It's just if you're only going to carry like 6 balls around, they become a little bit challenging. Whereas going to the Weber Cup, for me, it felt like that ball was a no-brainer because I felt like I could kind of get really up the back of it and keep it in front of me, and it would pick up enough that I could throw it hard and straight, but then I could also use it to really circle the lane like I actually did get to use it against Simonson. So that for me was a huge plus. And for me personally, those balls that you can change the kind of breakpoint shapes are really, really useful.
Yeah, I thought one of the things that noticed me is you were able to soften up a little bit, and it still cleared the lane very easily.
Yeah.
And when you saw friction, it obviously you could make it hook as much. It still rolled in the puddle enough to give you a chance, and when you got it right, it really came off the spot hard, and so yeah, I think that's the one out of the two for me that's most likely to fit a spot, kind of like you said, for the same type of reason. Drill a little weaker and use it a little bit more of a control thing, but the fact that it goes through the front and still reads the middle makes it a key part for me bowling on patterns and sport patterns and those kind of things.
Yeah. So that's definitely one of my favorites of the weaker balls that have come out. I've actually used it off my burner solid a little bit. I've had decent success with the burner solid going pretty straight on the house shots, being able to stand kind of on the friction almost. Once that starts to get a little lazy, I felt like I could just bump a little bit off it with this one, and it would give me that little bit more pop down the lane. So that's something to consider if you have balls in that gap. Like I say, it feels like we're going around a little bit in circles, telling people the same thing. But yeah, I guess there's only so many things you can say about the balls, and the lane's only 60 feet long and 3 feet wide. So that's kind of it, I think, for the height balls. I think I feel like the HP2 range has been one that's been a bit kind of weird for rotor grip over the time. I'm hoping that these two become kind of like the staple of that range, because for me so far they've seemed pretty useful. Be interesting to see what would happen if we could get like a stronger sort of solid cover on that core. That could be like, kind of the fresh killer.
Yeah.